Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share my asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit the great big subscribe button right here, right now, and please hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. So today's episode, we're going to talk about being child-free by choice. Being child-free by choice can be very fun, exciting, adventurous, and truly magical. So we're going to discuss this right now. So being child free can be a choice, and obviously some people excuse me, can't actually have children. And people who can't have children, it can really hurt them, be a very upsetting for them. So obviously, trigger warning for those people. This is a video all about being child free by choice. And there's a trend that's developed on the internet, in particular with social media, where there's a lot more people discussing their child-free lives and how good their child-free lives are and how they came to be child-free by choice. It was seen as years ago to be kind of frowned upon if you're a certain age, particularly, and you don't have kids by then. And it's still to a degree, but not as much, seen as not good if you are, for example, single, you're not married, you're not in a relationship, you've not got children. If something's seen as amiss, not right. But with more and more people speaking out about being child free now, that is starting to change. People are starting to see the benefits of being child free by choice. So being child free by choice means that you've made a conscious decision to not have children. So it's not been because of something that is like physically wrong with you, or you've got a disease or illness that prevents you from having children, or you can't conceive, or you're impotent, anything like that. Being child free by choice is you've thought in your mind, I don't want to have children for whatever reason that is. You don't feel that way. You don't want that lifestyle. You don't want to be having a child. It just doesn't feel right to you. Feel good. It doesn't feel good to you. And so you've made a conscious choice and decision not to have children. So how does this impact the world, society, your immediate family and friends? Well, there's a lot of cultures, particularly abroad, like Indian, Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Middle Eastern, that's still very much what I would call in the dark ages, where people are expected to have children a lot of the time still and fulfill the, family duty, as it were, to have kids. That's what is often seen as a family duty, to have children, to pass on the genes, to go from family generation to generation. Also, even in the UK, keeping the family name alive is still an important thing for some people. But every person is an individual. And until we break patterns and cycles of societal conditioning, then everything's going to remain the same and nothing much is going to change. A lot of people may be shamed for not having children, shamed for not bringing kids to their family, especially in certain cultures. But the whole point of being alive is to choose your life, to choose the life you want to lead, regardless of your ethnicity, your background, your sexual orientation. Is to choose the life that you want to lead, the life that is going to be fruitful and exciting and adventurous and good for you. Not your parents, not your relatives, not your friends, not your relations, your life, right? Your life. I still hear people saying, oh, but I've got no choice. My family expect it. You've still got a choice. You are not your family. You are an individual, an adult, most likely, if you're watching this right now. But even if you're not, you have a choice. I knew at 15 years old that I never ever wanted children in my life. I thought it through at 15. I already knew physically I didn't want children. I would not want that thing in my body. I would not want something growing inside me. To me, that was very repulsive, very gross. And it was something that was completely unnatural to me personally. And I couldn't think of anything worse, really. I mean, obviously, there probably are worse things in the world. But for me personally, I just, like, didn't want that. I'd, like, want to, figuratively speaking, rip it out. Or, I couldn't have children. I just wouldn't want to be in that position. And that's how strongly I feel, like, I just wouldn't want that in me. So I knew physically that I didn't want children at 15. So I did ask myself back then, okay, so if you didn't have children physically, could you have them by adoption? Now, this was an important question to ask myself because there are lots of children who I believe who need adoption, who want to have a good home, a loving home, a caring home. Often they've come from families that are broken, or maybe they lost their parents in a tragic accident. And, their life can be one of sadness. And if you can give a child the joy and happiness of being with a good parent, which I hope you would be if you decided to adopt and have children, then you can give them a new lease of life, and that can be a gift to them. It can be you giving something back to someone, giving something back to society, if you like, but a specific person that you've chosen. I liked the idea of actually choosing a child, not because you were forced, but because you actually chose that particular child. But for me personally, I know I'm not into babies at all. So if I'd have gone down the adoption route, I thought I'd want a kid like 3, 4 years old, probably 4, 5 even maybe, because I'd want them to be at school age. So I still had a life of my own. And, I wasn't with them all the time. So I thought this for at 15, but I decided even that I do not want to have kids because I don't want that lifestyle. If I was to have children, I would be a very dedicated mother. I would not be one of these type of parents that has a child and then basically doesn't want to play with it, doesn't want to talk to it, doesn't want to speak to it, doesn't want to engage the kid in proper conversation, doesn't want to ask the child their own opinions, because there's a lot of people who have kids in the world for the wrong reasons. They have kids because they're lonely. They have kids because they want someone to look after them in their old age. This is a huge, huge one. The amount of people I know that have children because they expect their children to look after them in their old age is absolutely ludicrous. And this particularly is prominent in a lot of foreign cultures, where they're expecting the woman to be in the house if you like as well. That's a lot of people still, a lot of religions still expect women to be the person who's in the house, doing housekeeping, cooking and cleaning, and expected to tend to the child and all that lot, right? And there's a distinct kind of like expectation and entitlement that a lot of guys still have of, oh, the women's place is in the kitchen. It's, I'm here for the woman to cook and clean for me. It's like, what the hell age are you living in? This is flaming dark age stuff. This is just ridiculous, right? A woman is not a slave. A woman is not to be used. A woman just doesn't want it unless she does. There are some women that do like being a housewife, my mum included, but the majority of women these days don't like that type of life. They're not interested in it, and you should never expect and have entitlement, and that's going to happen. All this type of things should be discussed up front. Discussed, not told, you're going to do this, but discussed openly. Like, what do you like to do? Like, do you like to do housework? Do you like to be in the home? Do you like to have children? All this type of thing should be discussed. But I knew at 15 that I never wanted kids. And if someone comes into your life that's child free who doesn't want kids, then you need to accept it. Not try to change their mind, not think after being with you like 1 month, 6 months, 10 years, 15 years, they're going to change their mind. They're not, right? I had a doctor tell me when I was 15 years old, oh, you'll change your mind when you're older, when you're an adult. I hate that. It's so patronizing. And I've never changed my mind. I've never ever changed my mind on that. I decided at 15, I went through the whole scenario. I don't want children. If I did have wanted children, had have wanted children, correct grammar, then I would have adopted, because I think it's important to give a child who needs it a good home and to choose the child and make them feel special, wanted, and needed because they're the chosen one. I think that's very important. And I didn't have a very good childhood. I was quite miserable a lot of the time and depressed. Not everything was bad, but I did have some really upsetting times, and I wouldn't want to put a child through that. And so if I had a child, I always want to make sure that their childhood wasn't like the one that I had in that way. I don't want a child to be depressed and feeling left out and lonely and misunderstood. And I don't want them to be bullied either. Obviously, you can't control bullies, but you can help the child to feel more empowered to be stronger in those situations if you're guiding them correctly, and hopefully you can try to sort bullying out if it does happen. But empowering the child to be strong, to be function in their own right, to make their own decisions from a young age and their own choices, and to praise them and to give them really positive emotions is so essential. So I knew that if I was a mother, I would have to dedicate a lot of my life and my time, because I would be the type of person that does things as much as I can as right as possible. And that has a duty of care to that little being. I think, like I said, a lot of people have kids for the wrong reasons. I can't believe, well, I can believe it, but it's difficult, to think there's so many religions and cultures that still believe, including in Indian culture, that a child should grow up and then pay for the family and, do what the parents want and have the marriage and have children and give the parents a grandchild. I just think that's such a selfish attitude. you know Grandchildren and children are not born for people. They should be born because you genuinely want that person in your life, not because you then say, oh, you owe me, you've got to pay me back for the way I brought you up when you're young. Right? If you decide to have a child, that's your responsibility. You've chosen that, and you need to bring them up with basic needs of care. It's not like you give life to something and then it's like, well, you owe me now. That's manipulation, right? No one should be doing that. So, in view of the fact that I'm child free, like, why did I choose to be child free? Well, I've gone into the fact that I physically didn't want children. I was scared when I had sex years ago, not because of the sex itself, but because I was scared of getting pregnant. I couldn't stand the idea of pregnancy, of possibly getting pregnant, and I used to buy pregnancy testing kits to test myself some of the time after I'd had sex, just to make sure I was not pregnant. I have had situations where I've had to take the morning after pill as well, which was like emergency contraception. This is when things didn't go right. So someone had sex with me and the condom burst, for example. This is really personal stuff, but I think it's important you know this type of stuff. And, if you have the contraception pill and you get an upset stomach, it cancels it out. So there's 2 times I've had the morning after pill because I definitely did not want to get pregnant and didn't want to risk that. And it hurts your tummy a lot, but it's worth it to not be having kids. So how does having no children affect my life? It makes me really happy to think that I'm completely autonomous, if you like, have agency in how I live my own life. Like, I'm not tied down to a being. I don't have to be there at a specific time doing a specific thing for a child. I don't have to have a little being relying on me. I don't have to behave a certain way. I can do fun and exciting things. I can go clubbing till the early hours of the morning. With a glow stick, I can kiss whatever guys I want. I can just go on holiday for me when I want to. Like, I'm going to Disneyland Paris well, I'll be in London this time next week and then Disneyland Paris soon. This time tomorrow I'll be in Disneyland Paris. This time tomorrow next week, sorry, I'll be in Disneyland Paris. I just put myself a week on quicker. So so yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. But I wouldn't be able to do that if I had kids unless I got someone to babysit them. You know? So it's very exciting life because I am very young on purpose myself. I live like a teenager, have a 21st mindset. And so some people think you can only be young if you have children, and they'll make an excuse like, oh, I saw this movie because my child wanted to see it. But why not just say you wanted to see it? Maybe you did see it because your child wanted to see it. But if you really like the movie, why didn't you just say, I saw a movie and I really liked it? I think having a child-free life is really fun and exciting because it means you're your own person. You don't have anyone to answer to but yourself. You've not got anyone else to look after that's reliant on you. If you get into a partnership with a partner, it is like a partnership or should be. You shouldn't be mothering the person. It should be equality. And yes, someone tends to be maybe the older on a relationship, maybe younger. Someone tends to be more feminine. Another person tends to be more masculine. But you don't want to be mothering or fathering someone. Ugh, I hate even the thought of that, right? But in a relationship, I do tend to be the younger one, on purpose, because I live a very young teenager lifestyle. And I don't think that would be possible if I had a kid. And I feel like I'm on purpose like a kid. And I love it. It's like in a relationship, I'm the young one and I like to be like that. I like to be like the kid. So there's no room for more. I feel like I would be competing with a child, but I wouldn't be competing with a child because if I had a child, I'd have to be a lot more adult. And I guess I like being young. I like being a lot younger in myself. I like being the teenager I'm born to be. I like having a 21st mindset. I like living the teenager lifestyle myself. And I feel that if I had a child, I'd have to be much more adult on purpose, much more older. And I wouldn't like that. I would think that it's not who I am. It's not who I was born to be. It doesn't feel good. It feels too old, too rigid, too inflexible. So when you haven't got any children, you can please yourself what you do. You can fulfill your own dreams and passions. You don't have anyone else kind of taking your time up and needing certain things from you. Because children have needs, and you have to meet them as a responsible adult. And I just think that, it's a much more exciting life. I can go to theme parks, zoos, aquariums, out for the meals, to the cinema, hit the clubs, do what I want when I want. And that type of freedom lifestyle is so much better, in my opinion, than having children and being tied to that, being tied to live a specific way where you have to take the child to school and then pick them up from school and then entertain them and help them with their homework and everything like that. To me, these things are very boring. It's not a fulfilling life for me personally. Some people want children, so they leave the legacy of children. For me, that's not a legacy. I don't believe that's a legacy for anyone, really, because then the child eventually will die. Then they might have their own children, they might not. And then it's kind of you like, where was your legacy, your personal legacy? Did you leave a legacy in your own right? So, for example, with me, my books are my legacy. My books will live on long after I'm gone. But if I had children, would I be able to write those books? Would I be able to do this channel? Probably not. Some people are career women and they manage to bring up children as well. And they juggle all those things. For me personally, I think it'd just be too much for me. Be too much pressure, too much going on at once, too much attention being split. And I feel I wouldn't be able to do the things I want to do. Wouldn't be able to see the place I want to see, do what I want to do when I want to do it. And so for me, being child free by choice is just really, really good. I can still have children physically as an asexual person who's personally sex repulsed for me these days. I just want you to know that I could still have kids biologically, physically, whatever you want to call it. I'm still got full working tackle down there. Still have my time of the month as a female. And so, I'm all my reproductive organs are still fully functioning. So I could end up getting pregnant even nowadays, even though I have no intention of ever getting pregnant. I don't have intention of going to have sex again, and I'm not interested in that. But some people think if you're asexual, it's because you haven't got the means of having sex, but that's not actually true. Biologically, I'm fully functioning. And I don't want to get pregnant. It's one of my worst fears. Like I said, when I had sex, I wasn't fearing, although I don't like sex, I'm not interested in sex and I don't like it. Back then I did do it and I did have bad sex and good sex in my life. But I'm not interested in sex. And I got scared of the pregnancy aspect, it'd be horrible. Violet, if I wanted children, I would adopt. I don't feel comfortable doing it naturally. Benefit of me being child free is I hate babies and kids. So glad daydom expensive and some of us can't afford it. Oh yes, I didn't even say anything, Violet. Thank you for nice to see you here, by the way, in chat. Thank you, Violet, for bringing that to my attention. Yes, children are very expensive. I don't actually know how people have kids and look after themselves as well, personally. To me, it's just like, where do you find the money from all that stuff? Of course, it's been a while. Yeah, we haven't seen each other for a while, have we? Lots of love to Violet in chat. But yeah, kids can be very, very expensive. I do feel that most people have children for the wrong reasons. Some of them, like I've mentioned already, they do it for very selfish reasons, like so that the kid will look after them in their old age. They assume that they think they're entitled to that. I bore you. You came from my womb, therefore you owe me your life. This is just really unhealthy thinking, unhealthy beliefs, unhealthy patterns, and sadly, in a lot of the foreign religions and cultures, it's passed down from generation to generation as though I gave birth to you, I put you through school and college or uni, now you owe me your life. You need to marry this person, have this child, live this life, have this career, and it's just like dreadful in my opinion. Violet, if I want a child, I'd just get a raven, a cat, a dog, or an orca. Yes, I think a lot of asexuals do actually prefer pets. They prefer having furry kids, furry babies. I still love having guinea pigs, but I can't have them in my new place. I don't have any guinea pigs anymore. I don't have any pets anymore. But I think it's important for me to actually be pet free for a while, even though it's kind of like odd for me to be pet free because I've always had pets for nearly all my life. But I think it's good for me to live for me for a bit. Even having furry kids can be quite difficult. It's very traumatic because every guinea pig I've had since leaving my parents, they've all had something wrong with them pretty much. Well, certainly when I moved to my last place, every guinea pig then had some problem. They had to have an operation. Most had to have multiple operations. So it can be very traumatic having to go for that because animals are like children. Like when I have guinea pigs, it is like having a child. And I'm always constantly worried about it and on edge. And that's another important thing actually, because I have an anxiety condition. I have generalized anxiety disorder. I get very anxious about a lot of things. Having to look after a child as well as myself and my own health and well-being would be very difficult in that respect, because when I had guinea pigs, I'm very intuitive with guinea pigs and I can feel and sense if something's wrong. I can be a bit off, so I could go to the vets because I think my guinea pig, I haven't got any guinea pigs, but in the past, such as I thought my guinea pig had something wrong with it. I was right, but it wasn't the thing that I thought was wrong with it was wrong. It was something else some of the time. So we're going for one thing, then I have to be x-rayed for another thing. So I was right that something was wrong, but I was not necessarily right about the thing that was wrong. And so I get, it's like living on tenterhooks, living on a lot of tension when you've got pets that are sick or can get sick and you have to like send them, take them to the vets, and then you're constantly worried about them. That takes a lot of toll on the body. It's quite traumatic and stressful. So if you can imagine that with an actual physical human being as a child, that would, I would have thought, be as worse. Maybe some people would find that even more worse. And so I think if you've got any mental health difficulties, you really have to weigh up the pros and cons of if having a child would be good for you and good for the child. A lot of the time, if you've got really a lot of mental health problems, or even some, you pass those to the child. So then the child ends up having issues later on because you may have subconsciously passed them on. You might not have gone, oh, I want to make my child like this. I don't think it's done intentionally by parents to say, oh, I want to make my child like this. But if you are a person that has anxiety, depression, moodiness, and this type of thing, this will be passed on to the child a little bit, and it will reflect in the way they act later on in adulthood. So, for example, if you're an avoidant type of person, if you avoid acknowledging your emotions, if you think it's like you shouldn't show emotions, and a child shows you emotion and you're quite numb to it, that child's going to get the impression later on in life that they can't be an emotional person, that it's wrong, that they get punished, and therefore they'll be withdrawn and they take on their emotions into themselves And some of those emotions are not going to be healthy. They're going to be difficult emotions, upsetting emotions, and then that's going to internally hurt them later on in their life, you see. So every action has a reaction. For everything you experience in life has a consequence for you and for children if you have children. Violet in chat. I hate it when someone's parents say, when you have kids, I feel like it's more inclusive to say if, because I think when you, oh yes, I feel like it's more inclusive to say if, because if sounds more polite. Nobody owes them anything. Yes, yes. Violet's bringing up a really good point. So a lot of people assume you're going to have kids, and they say when you have kids this, when you have kids that. So a lot of the time they'll say, oh, when you have kids, you'll know what it feels like to do X, Y, and Z. When you have kids, you'll know, how hard it is for doing this and doing that when you have kids, and they just assume you're going to have children. That is so annoying. I've had quite a few guys in the past say to me that they thought I was married because I looked the marriage type. Well, I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult. I think it's meant to be a compliment because it looks like I'm trustworthy in it, because I'm guessing that it looks like I'm a healthy person to be with, and that it looks like I'm trustworthy and a person that takes life seriously and maybe wants to settle down. But I actually am not interested in marriage because I also find that very restrictive. I find having children, marriage, all the conventional type of relationship very restrictive. I personally like to live on my own. I think these days, especially when so many people are so different, it's very important to live on your own so that if something does go wrong in that relationship, you're not then having to move home and sort bills out, and you can make a clean break for it a lot easier. Also, it's nice to have your own space, do your own thing, have your own friends over. Things you can't do when you have children. When you have children, you have a responsibility to them, or you should do. But there are just so many people, I believe, that have children for the wrong reasons. There's so many people that have kids, and it's because, oh, well, I've done what I'm expected to do, and it's just like, why are you doing that? Why are you just going along with what society conditions you to be, like a robot? Why? What is the frigging point? Violet, single equals paradise. Yeah, I much prefer being single. I think, you can be more of your own entity, you can be more of your own person, you can be more of your authentic self, and you can spend a lot more time working on your own projects, your own passions, and fulfilling your own life. When someone says to me, oh, I want to keep the bloodline of my family going, I had an asexual guy years ago who is meant to be a prince or something in his country. I don't know if this was just a joke or if he really meant it, or if he thought he was so handsome that he could be a prince. I think it was meant to be real, but I just didn't really believe him. Anyway, he's like, oh, I want to keep the bloodline going. It's like, so basically, you're only on planet Earth, right, to just pass your blood and genes onto another human being, then you die. And what have you got to show for it? Nothing. Because after you've died, yes, the child is still alive, but they have a life of their own. They'll probably have kids and family of their own, and you'll just be a memory. It's like, don't you want to create something for yourself while you're here and at least enjoy your own life? You know what I mean? Some people do have the knowledge or the experience or thought so that there's enough children in the world without having more. Some people believe that some of the human species is overpopulated, so there is that. I personally just think unless you really, really want children and you can look after them properly and prioritize them and tend to their needs properly and healthily, then I don't think you should have children, because there's so many children that are growing up that are either violent or the opposite, withdrawn and maybe hurt themselves. There's so many children that are getting hurt in emotionally unhealthy or physically abusive relationship dynamics with their family, parents, peers. They're growing up in really unhealthy, toxic relationships. A lot of people are passing toxicity down from generation to generation. Now, I love Indian guys, as you know, and I watch Bollywood movies, but the way they portray women in those movies is really bad. I mean, it's literally the woman keeps quiet a lot of the time. She pleases her husband. She's by her husband's side. And she tends to the children, and she has to be emotionally strong and keep it all together for the family. Even if the guy's an arrogant beep, and it's just so wrong and so damaging. It's like, it shouldn't be like that anymore. And all these unhealthy patterns are passed down from generation to generation. I mean, having a family where they're having children, but they're expecting their child to live their life, to do what they say and believe what they believe is just completely unhealthy. And, so if you're going to have children, you have to realize that they're individuals and one day they are going to leave home, most likely. And, you've got to prepare them for that. And you've got to give them autonomy and you've got to help them be empowered that they can make their own decisions, be empowered that it's healthy to express their emotions, both good emotions and both and bad emotions, like as in negative emotions, as in if they're upset and in pain, they should be able to express it. There's a lot of saying still to children that are wrong, like children should be seen and not heard. Do you know how damaging that is as an adult? If someone's been told they should be seen and not heard, what do you think they're going to do when they're an adult or going through their teens into adulthood and relationships? They're going to keep secrets. They're not going to talk to their family, their friends, and their parents about stuff because they're going to feel that they're going to get punished. So there's a lot of sayings that parents give to children which don't encourage children to grow and to flourish and to shine. They teach children that they should be seen and not heard, that their feelings don't matter because they're just kids, that adults know best. These are really damaging, toxic things that they are bringing to the child, and these stay with the child through to adulthood. And when you get an adult who's been told they should be seen and not heard, it means they keep quiet. It means they don't speak up. It means they end up sometimes being a doormat for people, being used for their money, being abused because they're told that their feelings don't matter, that they need to shut up, and they can basically be treated however the parents or whoever wants deems suitable, right? This is really damaging, you know. And how many times do we see kids, and if they're crying, that their parents are like, oh, shut up, or don't cry. There's no need to cry. How bad is that, right? Crying is a way of expressing emotion, expressing grief, expressing unhappiness. It is meant to be felt and expressed and put out in the world. Grief and crying and upset and pain is meant to be worked through and got rid of, not bottling it up inside, not repressing it, not suppressing it. These are totally unhealthy. And then as adults, when you have a lot of depression, it's because you've got all these bottled up feelings, because you've got these people that don't understand you. And you feel left out and misunderstood if you've got parents that are saying to you, oh, a child should be seen, not heard, or the parents are too busy watching TV or doing some other thing or interested in something else to pay attention to the child, right? Healthy relationships are based on mutual respect or based on mutual support, mutual encouragement. When you're a child, you rely on your parents, on your caregivers. Maybe they're not parents, but your caregivers to be there for you, to nourish you, to encourage you, to support you, to allow and facilitate you to have healthy expression of your emotions, whether that's you being happy and excited and you want to be elated and you're like, yay, I'm so happy, or you want to be sad and because you've hurt yourself. Both should be encouraged. Your parents should be praising you, like, it's really good you've done that. They should be supporting you in your choices, even choices of food. Luckily, I did have choices of food when I was younger. Like, I wasn't, well, my parents would give me food, but I don't have to eat if I don't like it. Um, but I know some people's parents, they like forced them to eat certain foods and they wouldn't allow them to leave the table unless they'd spent hours eating foods that made them feel sick and they just didn't want to eat it, right? Trying to force someone to do something like that as a child is basically, going to make them not want to be around people. It's going to make them have problems and issues with food. It's going to make them feel like, like their feelings don't matter. And so as an adult, all these childhood trauma issues of children should be seen and not heard, children don't have a right to have a say in things, all these bad things that the parents or other caregivers give their children, they take these to adulthood. And how do you think that adult functions properly? It doesn't a lot of the time. It gets depressed, it gets anxious, it gets nervous. And this is why we have a lot of adults these days with mental health difficulties. It's something that's not widely enough talked about in society, but a lot of people's adult problems come from childhood. And then you have to spend your adulthood trying to rectify all the problems that were in your childhood. You can't turn the clock back. You can't make these things not happen, but you have to re educate yourself, recondition yourself, reprogram yourself as an adult to realize that these things were very unhealthy and not right. Because when we're a child, we believe our parents are always right, or our caregivers are always right. Our peers are always right because they're older than us, they have more authority than us. And so, therefore, what they say goes, and we have to live with what they say and we have to abide by it. And if we want to be good, and so, therefore, we put a lot of stock in what they say. We believe everything they say. We think they're totally right. But parents, caregivers are adults, human beings. They can be full of errors and mistakes themselves. They can be doing things wrong. And like I said, I've listed a number of things that are wrong. There's so much damage being done to children psychologically, not just, physically. Obviously, some people have abusive parents. Some people are alcoholics. Luckily, my parents have never drank hardly anything, which is a really good thing. But I know even someone who's in the entrepreneur space, their family was alcoholics. I know of other people whose family are alcoholics, there's a lot of people whose parents and family were alcoholics. And, like the child ends up looking after the parent or parent, be a parent to them, and the roles reverse. And so, you put a lot of pressure on a child, right? If you decide to be child free, you're not subjecting children to all these types of issues and problems. And you're probably trying to sort your own issues and problems out from your childhood. But it's much better to stop the cycle and say, no, I'm not going to bring a child up into this world and make them suffer and experience what I've experienced. Obviously, if you do heal and you do decide you want to have kids, then you might be a healthy parent for that child. But some people never stop healing throughout their adult life for stuff that's gone in their childhood. Some people will always be affected by the trauma they experience in their childhood, and healing from childhood trauma is an ongoing thing. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's something that you have to learn to deal with, and you have to do it in stages. But there's so much going on in childhood trauma, and so when we as an adult suffer, when we've got a lot of mental health problems and diseases and sicknesses and illnesses, a lot of the time it's because our body nervous system is overloaded by problems from the past. Like if, for example, a child has been rejected a lot from their parents and been pushed aside, and say the child wanted to cuddle and the mums or dad's like, no, I haven't got time for that, I'm busy, and this is a message they keep getting, what do you think that child's going to do as an adult? They're probably not going to want to hug because they're going to have a fear of rejection. They're probably going to have a deep problem with intimacy because intimacy means rejection to them. That's what they're taught as a child. And so they're going to have, and they might have avoidant issues. So they're going to avoid intimacy, going to avoid a relationship because they're taught as a child that no, I get pushed away if I do that type of thing. And then, avoidant type is toxic. If you're constantly avoiding things and situations, it's toxic for yourself and toxic for other people, right? And so you've got to work on your issues all the time. People don't tell you as a kid, oh, basically you're going to have a long, hard lot of work, in your life coming up. And it's because you're actually born, which is a great thing, but you're going to have a long line of work that you have to do. You have to correct the things that happen in your childhood in your future. And that's a hell of a lot of burden on you, a hell of a lot of stress and strain. But, there are people that do bring kids up healthily, and these are the ones that actually support the child, that allow the child to play and explore, that are there for them if they fall over, if they make mistakes. They don't go around saying stuff like, oh, I'm here to pick up the pieces. Like insinuating the child's going to do something wrong. They allow the child to fall and struggle and stumble and say, yeah, this is great. You're exploring, you're experiencing, if you get down, you just get back up again. I'm proud of you for trying, and stuff like this. It's all about encouragement and allowing that person, that child, to be themselves, and encouraging and supporting them to have healthy relationship with themselves. And as a parent, you should, I'm not a parent, but I've been a guinea pig parent, but you should be there for the child, to encourage and to support them, and realize it is a full-time job being a parent. If you don't want that job and responsibility, don't be a parent. The amount of people that have children, like I said, for the wrong reasons, because the child can take care of me in my old age, or because, like, it's a bit like a trophy. Look, I've got kids now. I'm meant to do this in my life. I'll just tick it off as a bucket list thing to do, without it actually meaning much to me, because it's just something I've got to do. These are the wrong reasons to have children. You should have a child because you really want a child, because you think it will add value to your life, because you want the responsibility and achievement of having that little being that you bring up to hopefully be a good, healthy adult, right? So being child free to me means I decided consciously to not have children, and the benefits to me are huge, because I'm not going to bring a child into this world and then have the problems or issues or things I haven't healed from put on them. I don't expect anyone to look after me in my old age but myself. I'm not old, I'm young. But I'll probably have to write notes to myself, because I'm an only child, and be like, if I forget something, I'll be like, Sandra, blah, blah, blah's in the cupboard. So yeah, if you're an only child, then that's something else, isn't it? So if you decide to have children and then you just have one, it could be lonely for that one, or it could be great to just have one, because that person could get all the attention on themselves. But I think it's harder when you're an only child, because, like, everything's placed on you, all the responsibility, all the burdens. And if you're a person that has to look after your parents or your caregivers as a child, maybe they're dysfunctional or something, and you've got to take care of them in some way, then that can be very hard when there's just one of you. Also, it can make you more clingy to your parents. It can make you more involved in their life, because you don't have a brother or sister to go to. So there are issues if you are a single, um, child, brothers or sisters. Also, though, it can make you very much stronger, because you've got to rely on yourself. You can't go to a brother or sister to get you out of trouble or to talk to them. You have to deal with things yourself. So as an adult myself, I'm really glad that I decided at 15 I didn't want children. I've never changed my mind. I think it's so patronizing when people keep saying you'll change your mind, or if you like, just with asexuality, when someone says, oh, when you find the right person, you'll think differently. Like, just because I find a person that might be right for me, I'll magically want sex with them. It doesn't work like that. Even if I found someone that's the right person for me, doesn't mean to say I'm going to want sex with that person, or my sexual orientation is not going to change because I meet someone. The right guy for me would not expect me to have sex with him. He'd love me because of me and want specifically to be with me rather than anyone else, right? And so, it's like, people have these expectations of you having kids, like Violet said, like, when you have kids, this, that, and the other. It's like, when you meet the right person, you'll want children. It's like, no, I won't, right? I'm never going to want kids in my life. I don't want to meet a guy, even in him have kids. I don't want a guy to be in a relationship with me if he's already got children, or if he wants children. It was sad a while ago, because there was an Indian guy who I did get on well with, but I never met him in person. And then he got more and more attached to me, and me him, knowing full well that I didn't want children, and then said, oh yeah, that's my life purpose. And if it's his life purpose, fair enough. Quite frankly, I don't see how it's someone's life purpose, because I don't think that way. Because to me, it's just like, well, what about actually having a life of your own? But then that's why I'm different and child free, because I like having a life of my own. I like being able to look after myself, being, a person who lives my own life, who does my own thing when I want to, and I don't have anything else or anyone else to take care of. If I did have a relationship, yes, I would take care of that person to a certain extent. But obviously, as an adult, I would expect them to be able to look after themselves and not be so reliant on me, But I'm good with emotional support, very good with emotional support for people, and I do have a caring side to me, and I do get on well with children, but I think of them as little beings in their own right. And I like some of the same movies they like and stuff like that. But being child free is very exciting to me because I can live an exciting life, as in I can go wherever I want, do whatever I want. I can live my dreams and I don't have anything or anyone holding me back. The only person that holds me back, if anyone, would be myself, which I try not to do. Right? Like I'm going to be a speaker at Oxford University this October. I'm in a chapter in Blue Talk's book. I'm like on podcasts and stuff. Like I'm gonna be, like finishing my Asexual Guide to Sex book soon. I keep saying that, but I'm still working on the editing side of it. And I started to do cover designs the other day, over 100, not many. But and so, I think that I wouldn't be able to leave my lasting legacy. I personally find it difficult to concentrate on multiple things at once. Like if I had children, I would feel that I would have an obligation and responsibility to make my life really a lot about them and be inclusive of them a lot of the time, and that I wouldn't want to take time away from me and them to do my own thing so much, because I feel like I do need to pay them time, attention, and so they feel included and that they're a very important person in my life. And so I think it's so much better if you plow all that time, energy, and effort that you would with a child into your own projects, into your own hobbies, into your own legacy. If I was writing Asexual Guide to Sex, but I had a child, that would be very difficult because obviously children who are like small children shouldn't be reading stuff like that, right? It's too young for them. And so, that would be kind of difficult to do that. And I wouldn't be YouTubing right now, I don't believe. I wouldn't be living this life of like adventure and fun where I go to Bollywood parties and I just like, I live my own life and I'm free and I just don't have any of those burdens or trouble or situations crop up where I have to deal with things that you would have to deal with as a mum, like I don't have to create packed lunches, I don't have to cook and clean after a kid, I don't have to watch the programs that they want to watch, I don't have to pick them up from school, I don't have to take them from school to take them to school, I don't have to deal with parents. I don't, because I have a 21st mindset and live like a teenager myself, I don't relate to people usually that have got children because they're a lot older usually. I think they have to be older because they have to be more responsible in that way. But it's like they're too adult for me, too older for me. They're not having so much fun with their life. Their life is kind of literally revolving around the child, which you think it should be. But also it's kind of like they've got an older outlook, which I think they do need to a certain extent with children, right? But children do also need fun in their life. They do also need to do fun young things as well. And so I just believe that having like no kids is life much more adventurous. Some people really love traveling. And if you really love traveling, then having children is not a very good option because, you can't really take off and travel around the world easily if you've got children, right? Unless you're homeschooling them, which can be bad in the sense of not mixing with any other children if you're just constantly traveling and teaching them yourself, and you might not be very good at what you're teaching or not know the subject. So I think it's much better to not have children if you don't want them, especially. I think it's much healthier to not pass your traumas onto children. I think it's much healthier to be free and to live your own life and not having restrictions with children or stipulations. And I just like Violet says, being single is paradise because you do what you want when you want. You're literally looking after yourself. Yourself can be a huge focus. And if you're not, focusing on yourself as a single person, child free, or even in a relationship to offer, you have more chance of actually focusing on more stuff that's in your own interest, which I think is really important. There's nothing wrong with actually living your life as you see fit and want to, like if I was in a relationship with a guy, I wouldn't want a child involved, because it's like that child would require a lot of time, energy, and effort. And I would feel like there's a third party in the relationship, because I don't personally want children. I've had some guys saying, okay, I'll still be in a relationship with you, but have kids as well. And I'm like, I don't want that. If you want kids, don't be with me, because I don't want a child in that person's life, because I don't want to be with someone who does have a child. I like being completely child free. If I see on dating sites a guy's got a child, I'm not interested, because I know he has to dedicate a certain amount of time to that child, be a certain way with the child. That's a lifestyle I don't want to live. I think having a child-free lifestyle is so much better, because of what you can do anything you want. You don't have to be tied down. You don't have to be responsible for something. I like having the responsibility of helping asexuals on this channel. I get very, very lot of satisfaction out of that. But I don't think I would be doing this channel if I had a child, because my priorities would be different. And I might even not have even found out I'm asexual if I had a child, right? So I think it's very important that you really consider whether having children is the right thing for you to do personally, not because someone expects you to do it, not because some family member is going on at you about having kids, but because you truly want it. If you don't want kids, don't have them. And don't be ashamed to say that you don't want them. And if people don't like it, that's their problem. It's not your problem. It's your choice not to have children. It doesn't matter what the relatives think, the families think, the friends think. Yes, at first they might not agree with it or like it, but it doesn't matter what they think, because you're your own person. All you do is say, I don't want kids. Oh, but blah, blah, blah. It's no buts. It's non negotiable. You don't want kids. You've made a decision. That's it. Period. It's not up for debate. Just like your asexuality is not up for debate. Don't allow people to debate your life, to debate your sexuality, to debate your choices. Don't allow them to do that, because if you allow them to do that, it makes you powerless, and it makes you the person who's cowering to them, worried about what they think. Just be strong and say, look, I don't want children. I've decided, that's it. Period. Right? If fans and family and relatives want to carry on, just say, okay, talk amongst yourselves then, because I'm not interested. I don't want children. Luckily, my parents were cool about me not having kids. From the age of 15, I told them, and they took me seriously. So that is a really good thing about my parents. They took me seriously. They've always known since 15 years old I don't want children. I've never changed my mind on that. They know I'm into younger guys as well. And that would kind of be a very weird issue, wouldn't it? Like some people said to me, oh, if you want a young guy, why don't you have a kid to mother? It's like, I do not want a young guy in a relationship to mother. It's the exact opposite. If anything, I would be the younger one in the relationship, and he can cook and clean for me if he wants. Not that I need that, because I can do that for myself. I hate doing it, but I'll do it for myself because I have to, right? But if anyone is going to be like the young person, it's going to be me. And I do not want to mother a guy. I want the guy to be very self sufficient with housework and taking care of himself, making his own decisions, being strong with his family, being like, no, I'm with Sandra. And like, he would probably be the old soul adult one, and I'd be the young soul younger one. Even though birth certificate age wise, I would be the older in the birth certificate age sense, in the mindset and lifestyle, I would be the younger person, and that dynamic just wouldn't work out with a kid. And I do not want to mother a guy at all. I want to be loving to him, caring and kind to him, and treat him well. But I don't want to mother him. I don't want a guy that can't clean and look after himself. And I want a guy that can cook very well for himself, that can clean very well for himself. That's probably more tidy than I am. That's like can look after himself physically in the house and stuff. That's independent that way, but still values commitment. And that dynamic of relationship I want wouldn't work with a child, because I like being the younger one in a relationship. And I definitely do not want to mother a guy. That whole concept of mothering a guy makes me feel sick, quite frankly. Like, I don't want a father figure either. I just don't like these mummy daddy relationships. It's like, I like a younger guy because I just get attracted to younger guys because their lifestyle is very similar to the one I lead. Their energy is very similar to my energy. Like on Facebook dating, I've actually put my age preference up to 34, which is a lot more older than I'd usually go for, because I like guys in their 20s. But earlier today, I just had a guy messaging me because I decided, because I put like 21 to 34. Usually it's 21 to 28 maximum. But I decided to put it a bit higher. I think I had it up to 30 or 32 before, which is high enough as it is. But I know I'll put it to 34. But it's like, I'm not really that interested in older guys. And when I was talking to a guy, I actually put it down to 20. I thought I'll go to 20, which is usually too young for me, but I thought I'll do that anyway. And I ended up talking to a 20-year-old, not for very long, because obviously he probably doesn't want anything serious. And so, but it's just nice to have a quick chat with him, because I get attracted to younger guys. I can't help it, because the clothes they wear are really nice. The energy matches mine usually. They like similar type of things. They're looking for some similar type of things in a relationship. But the thing is, obviously, a lot of the time, they're not looking for a serious relationship. They're looking for more like casual dating, hookups and that type of thing, or just friendships. And I'm not really into casual hooking. I'm not into casual or hookups at all. And in terms of friendship, a lot of those would want friends with benefits, not real friendship, So it's very difficult, the fact that I like younger guys, but I do, you can't force yourself to like an age group you're just not into. And uh, to me, looking after a child is just a very abstract concept, because I'm not that type of person. I choose to be child free because it gives me autonomy. It gives me literally freedom to do what I want when I want. And it also alleviates any responsibility of taking care of another individual to that extent. I mean, if you're in a loving, caring, committed relationship, you do take care of that other person to a certain extent, but as an adult, they can look after themselves. And there is absolutely no way I want to mother a guy. I don't like a mummy's boy either. Guys who are like live by their parents' rules and their mummy's rules just don't do anything for me. It's the opposite. It's like, if you cannot make your own choices and decisions in life, then really you're not the right guy for me. I like a guy who's young but has an older soul, if you like, and is able to say to his parents that this is a girl I've chosen, that's who I'm going to be with. End of story. Like, I think it's very important to develop in life a non-negotiable aspect to your own choices, right? It doesn't mean to say you can't listen to other people's opinions, but when it comes to having your own choices in life, you need to make sure that you're telling someone, like, this is my choice, this is non-negotiable, it's not for debate. That's it. You can either be happy for me because it's what I want, or if you choose not to be happy for me, that's your decision. But I'm still going to go ahead and do it anyway, right? And so being child free means, like, you don't have the responsibilities that other people would have. You don't. And, like, I never wanted kids physically. That, like I said earlier, that actually repulses me. And I'm actually pregnancy repulsed. I don't like the look of a woman who's pregnant. I don't like pregnancy. I don't think it's. I'm very different to the majority of the population, right? Most people would completely disagree with me on this, but I just don't like it. It doesn't look nice. Like your tummy grown with something inside you. To me, it just feels gross and repulsive. That's why if I ever get guys on dating that say, "Oh, I might consider kids," I'm like, "Oh my God." Like, it's just so gross to me. The whole thing's gross. And someone said in my Asexual Perspectives book, this book here, if you haven't already got a copy, get one from Amazon. There is nothing natural about a being, basically a kid, a baby, being pushed through the birth canal. How is that natural? It has to stretch everything in order for it to go through, and hurt the body. I mean, I can't even watch these films or TV programs that have someone giving birth. I think it's disgusting when they're in so much pain and trying to squeeze it out. It's like, oh my Lord. Sounds like they're being tortured, And I just think the whole thing is just weird. And it's personally gross for me. And I know that's not true for the majority of people, but it is for me. I have no maternal instinct like that whatsoever. No need in me at all. Just like I don't get the urge or want for partnered sexual intercourse, I'm not interested in having a baby. In fact, obviously I've had sex in the past, if you follow my channel, but I've never wanted a baby. So if in the past, if I had to choose between sex and a baby, I would choose sex. Even now, I would not choose a baby, and I don't want sex. because I really don't want to get pregnant. I do not want the being growing inside of me. It's gross. Right, with sex, you can do it and like it's over, right? You don't have to carry on looking after that forever and a day. But obviously, sex can lead to pregnancy, and the pregnancy terrifies me a lot more than having sex ever did. It's the pregnancy that I can't stand. The fear of pregnancy when I had sex was just sky high. It made me nervous and on edge the whole time. I would have preferred it in the past if I couldn't, get pregnant when I had sex, because that was just so worrying for me. And that was even more worrying than the sex itself. I just hate it that much, and I'm so glad that I made the decision at 15 not to have children. I'm so glad I went my own way on that. I'm so glad to live my own life and to choose my own age. This is very important. I hate it when people go, "Oh, I'm this age, I've got to behave a certain way and do this certain thing." It's like, no, I have a 21-year-old mindset. I reprogram myself to be like that using neuro linguistic programming, NLP. You can look it up, it's a real thing. And I've just had my birthday this week, and I'm going to Disneyland Paris as a birthday treat for myself, a late birthday treat, and I'm going to be celebrating having a 21 mindset birthday when I'm in Disneyland Paris. I've already got lots of decorations and stuff to put in my room, and I'm going to love it, right? And so I love being young, I love being me, and I love living life to the max and going on theme park rides and doing what kids do, right? Like, going on Toy Story rides, going on Iron Man rides, going on Spider-Man rides, watching Star Wars, like Stormtroopers and stuff. I love all that kid stuff myself. I don't need a kid because I can do all this kid stuff myself. And some people do have kids to kind of like relive their own childhood, I think, because it's like they're reliving it through the kids because they believe when they get to a certain age they can't live that life. That's just bullshit. Right? There's people who are 80 years old who are climbing Mount Flaming Everest, for goodness sake. So you just don't go by stereotypes. Go and live your life the way you want to live it. Go and be the age that you want to be. And if you don't want kids, that's great, because you're up for a fun, exciting adventure of your own life where you're focused on yourself and you're focused on making the best life for you and leaving a legacy in your own right. And it can be very fulfilling, like education, doing courses, filling your life up with hobbies and interests. And if you haven't got children, that you can work on different projects and you can get them finished a lot quicker, or make sure you do eventually get them finished. You can like I say, if you're into traveling, you can travel the world, you can do backpacking, hiking, you can go away camping, you can do what you want. You can have as many friends as you want. You have different types of friendship relationships. You can just I think you can just do so much more because you don't have a responsibility. And like Violet said, having kids can be very expensive, like paying for their school books, paying for their uniforms, paying for their food and roof over their heads. And if you've got your own stuff going on, your own worries in life, why add to your life with more burdens and more things that could potentially make things change in your life and go wrong even, like, why have a responsibility of another human when sometimes people can't even look after themselves, right? So I think it's very important when you choose to be child free to just live the freedom lifestyle that you want to live. That for you, that might just be going on walks all the time. It might be going, to gym all the time. It might be going clubbing. It might be living a good, happy life. Like, I like Indian guys. One thing that just really, like, I can't believe it's like when they're over in the UK, they're like, partying, they're working, studying, they're out with their friends, they're watching movies, they're going out to cinema, they're clubbing, having a really good time. And then when they go back to their own country, they're like this really disciplined, older, serious person. And it's like, why? Just because like your parents expect you to behave a certain way, and then they're going to expect you to get married, and then they're going to expect you to have kids. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like living that conditioned, robotic, boring life. It's like, why, when you're over in the UK, you've got this freedom, like, do what you want when you want, go out, have fun, live a crazy wild life. And then when you go back to India, or, it happens in other countries as well, like Pakistan, you're like, all this, there's so much restriction on you. There's so much like expected of you to perform in terms of what you wear, what you say, what you do, the life you lead. And I watch some Bollywood movies, and it's kind of like after the couple's married, they don't really kiss that much anymore. They're not really going out much anymore. It literally is all about like children, keeping the home clean and tidy, and work, and having basically family gatherings. It's like, why would you go from that really high octane, energetic, freedom lifestyle where you can literally go out partying, go and enjoy movies, go and be with your friends more, go and have lots of fun in life, to this very restrictive, conditioned family type of relationship where you're tied down to family traditions, you're expected to have an arranged marriage, you're expected to have children, you basically go to work in a job that's expected of you, and live a lot of your parents' life, how they want you to live. And then you just like get a house, and then or live with your parents, and you can't really even be yourself in a relationship. You have to kind of be behaving a certain way that your parents expect you to behave. It's just so restrictive and so suppressing. And and then what have you got to show for it? Like when your parents die, because they're not going to be around forever, like what have you got to show for it? Oh, I have an arranged marriage. Maybe it's to someone you don't even love or want to be with. And then you have a kid that that maybe you didn't even want it in the first place. Or you got a kid and wife, but you missed out on having the freedom with your wife, for example, because you had to stay working like 40, 50, 60 hours or whatever, to pay for the kids' education, to pay for the child to have food, obviously, to pay for the home and everything. And you've just worked yourself into an early grave. And all for what? Because society dictated it, because family values are the most important thing, because pleasing your family is the be all and end all of life. You're like, what happens when your parents die? Like, what happens when your brothers and sisters move away and have marriages of their own and kids? Like, where do you fit into that anymore? Like, where did your life go? What did you do with it? Because you're tied down to children and a married family life. Some people like that life. If you really want that life, true to yourself, then go for it, right? But I just see, for example, like I'm using Indian guys as an example because I'm only interested in Indian guys usually. It happens with Pakistani guys as well, Bangladesh quite a lot, and Middle Eastern. These are the type of guys I'm interested in. And a lot of them go to live with their families, like their parents or something. It's like I could never do that. Like to me, it's so restrictive, so repressing, so like you're just living as your child. It's like you never actually grow up yourself when you're living how your family want you to live. It's like you're still permanently the child anyway. You're a child bringing up children. And it's a child that it's not like you're being a child as in a freedom way that you're choosing to live a certain lifestyle. It's like you're a child as in the sense your parents treat you like a child and dictate to you what to do, because you aren't allowed to flourish and shine in your own right. Your life is dependent on you basically giving birth and doing a certain job and being at a certain time and place and doing the family duty. It's like you're not a piece of meat, you're not an object. You're not something that's just like, oh, you have to fulfill this role in life. This is just treating you like a number. It's not good. It's really not good. And when I see these Indian movies where the mother is basically like she's just gone old, the guy's not even really kissing her or romancing her anymore. It's like the romance was over as soon as the marriage hit, and then the children came along. Now it's all like hard work, and like it's like really, like where's the life gone? And if you are child free and in a relationship, it means you can focus a lot more on spending time with that person, quality time with the person without interruptions. It means you can focus more on building something together as a team without taking into consideration a third party's feelings. You can focus more on that person. So in a relationship, like if you are in a healthy relationship, you should realize there's a teamwork, right? You can't have a healthy relationship if you're the one doing all the work in the relationship, if you're the only one showing up in the relationship, if you're the only one wanting to discuss problems, situations, and things like that, if you're the only one putting time, energy, and effort and love into the relationship, it's not healthy, it's not fulfilling, right? So you need to understand that a relationship is teamwork. If you have kids, it is teamwork, but it's another team dynamic, right? Which you've got different age groups, you've got different generations, you've got different opinions, you've got also, to take into account you and the person in a relationship as well as a child. Sometimes the child can suffer because of your relationship, or sometimes your relationship can suffer because of the child, right? But when you are child free, and if you get into a relationship as a child free couple, you can build the relationship and life of your dreams a lot more easily if you're healthy, particularly because you are able to spend quality time with each other, actively listen to each other. This means phones switched off per way, actively listen to each other, and you can work out as a team how to set goals for the relationship. Like, what do you want to improve on in the relationship? Do you want to improve your timekeeping together, your communication together? You can do more interests and hobbies together. You can go out late at night. You could go for a drive in the car at 2 a.m. If you got child responsibilities where your child's got to be in bed by 10 p.m. or whatever, you can't be going around doing that type of thing. And you can't just go out when you want, and do what you want, because if you've got a child, for their own safety, you need to be at home. You need to be looking after them, right? So when you are child free, like even years ago, as a teenager, when I was 19 in birth certificate age, I actually there was a guy I dated for one night, completely the wrong guy for me, and so I ended it. It wasn't a date. I meant to be in a relationship, but I only lasted one night. I met him the next day, had a kiss, and it's like, oh, this guy's just meant to be my friend. And he's like, if you ever want someone who loves you, then get back in touch. But anyway, he got back in touch eventually and became a really good friend of mine. And we used to like go in his car, and we used to like hang out in the car and like go for like like go and watch the like stars and stuff like that, and sit in deck chairs. Like, for example, there's a place in the UK called Timoth, and sometimes he would just drive me there and we sit in these deck chairs in front of the sea and watch the stars and stuff like that. You can't just do stuff like that if you've got children, right? So you get a lot more freedom, and a lot more ability to just take off and to do special things like that. Like if you're in a relationship, you can like be out late at night together and not have to worry and not have to get back for anyone. You can just be yourself, and I think it's a lot more easier to be your true authentic self when you haven't got another little being to take care of. This is why I definitely do not want to mother a guy. I want the opposite to that. I want a guy who's strong in his own right, not to mother a guy. I like a guy who's younger because I just have the same sort of energy as him, or I have younger energy actually. He's usually more tired than I am. And I have, like I like the type of lifestyle, like a lot of younger guys are into studying and education and then going out with their friends and partying. And that's kind of like what I like to do, but would like it to do it in a relationship with a guy as well. And it's kind of like I just like that freedom lifestyle a lot more. So anyway, I just thought I'd tell you how good having a child-free life is like, because it's a lot of fun to me. Like, I get to go out and like you saw for my birthday, I went to Paynton Zoo, I went to Bristol Aquarium, I went to theme parks. I was able to do that because I'm child-free, because I live my own life dictated by myself, no one else. I don't have to answer to anyone else. I don't have to get back on time for anyone else. I don't have anyone else in my life. Obviously, I have my best friend that I was with at the time, which I'm taking into consideration. But, like, I can just do what I want when I want, and I can plan trips and go away. And, like, it's exciting living a single life even. I do like my single life. That's why it's kind of like 50-50 in a relationship. Like, I would love to meet my soulmate, but I do really like my single life as well. I like being free and single. I like being able to just do what I want when I want and not have to answer to anyone. But I think if you find the right person to be in a relationship with, it's more like a good, healthy person to be in a relationship with will bring out the best in you and will enhance the best of you. So if you get a relationship that's healthy, that person should be as invested in you as you're invested in them emotionally, time, energy, and effort wise. And they should lift you up and encourage you and support you. And you do that to them. And they should, like be there for you and make you feel like you've made a good choice and decision by being with them in a relationship, because they're enhancing your life. Your life should be good already, but they're making it even better. And you should be in a relationship with someone who values commitment and sees the beauty in commitment, sees the beauty of making changes for the positive in themselves to be a better person for you in the relationship, as well as being a better person generally as a human being overall. Because the people that are healthy in relationships realize that they have traumas, they have past wounds, they have addictive maybe personalities or behaviors, or they have issues that they need to resolve from the past childhood usually, and they need to do that in a relationship with you and on their own as well in the relationship. And they always should be striving to have goals with you for the relationship, to move their relationship forward. When you find someone who's actually the right person for you for a relationship in a healthy way, they are going to open up old wounds and they are going to trigger past traumas and stuff. Because, if you're with someone that long in close proximity, you're going to be very vulnerable. And it's important you get someone with similar ideology, like on the dating scene. I purposely put in my profile that I don't want sex, I don't want marriage, I don't want kids, and I prefer to live separately. Because it's important guys know that, right? It's important guys know up front I don't want children. I had a guy on Facebook dating ask me, like, oh, is it because you're asexual that makes you not want sex or not have children? And I'm like, well, both, but it's not actually because I'm asexual that I don't want kids, because I didn't want kids when I was 15. I didn't know I'm asexual back then. So my not wanting kids is aside from asexuality. Even if I wasn't asexual, I still wouldn't have kids. But obviously the fact that I'm not really into sex probably plays maybe a tiny role in the fact that I don't want kids. Well, a big role in the physical sense of it. But I've known since 15, before I ever found out I'm asexual, that I don't want children because I don't physically want them in me. And the adoption lifestyle is just, I'm not into that lifestyle. I'm not into having children lifestyle. To me, it's a lifestyle of much more adulthood, much more seriousness, much more restriction, much more conformity. And I'm a non-conformist. I'm an individualist who plays by her own rules in life, not other people's. I don't come here on planet Earth to be dictated to how to live my life. I do come here on planet Earth to make a difference to people's lives. There's a big difference between, coming here to be ruled by people in your life and coming here to serve people in your life. And so I've put on planet Earth to help asexuals, to get asexuality recognized to a more global audience, including, reaching out to a lot more heterosexuals and trying to enable them to understand that asexuality is a real sexual orientation. We don't experience sexual attraction. It's based on lack of sexual attraction. And not wanting sex, not needing sex is perfectly fine, just like not wanting children is perfectly fine. Long gone are the days when it's wrong to not want kids. There used to be a lot of people years ago that used to say, oh, you're going to die old and alone. And the emphasis was not just on a relationship, but because you're not having kids. Like, you're not married, you're not having kids. It's like, there's nothing wrong with being on your own, being single for the rest of your life. Just because you're on your own doesn't mean to say you're going to be lonely or die a miserable death or live a lonely life. You can be alone and still be happy because you can please yourself what you do, right? You don't have to conform to what society wants you to be. There are lots of people out there that will always have kids, right? And obviously, I'm sat here now saying all this about don't want children. My mum's the exact opposite to me. She always wanted children. So I'm glad that I made that dream come true for her. And I wasn't even supposed to be here. My parents got told that they can have children at a certain point in their life, which was in their later 20s. And so yeah, I came along like a miracle, which is good, right? And so I wasn't even supposed to be here, but I'm here. Yay. And so, if people didn't want children, then a lot of us wouldn't even be here in life. So obviously I'm grateful to the people who do want children, for the people that I know in my life, like my best friends Sammy and Andy. They wouldn't have been born had their parents not wanted to have children. So, people who want to have kids do still have, a valuable input into the world. They are still valid. And there's some asexuals that do want children. Some of those will have artificial insemination, some of them will adopt, and some of them will have sex just to have children and not have sex again ever in their lives. So every asexual is different, but I do love being child free. I've never ever think that I want children. I find it really difficult when I meet a guy and he is so traditional and he is like wanting kids, and I'm thinking, how would that ever work with me? Not, I don't physically want them as it is, but how I just repulses me the whole idea. I'm like, so basically we just live this 9 to 5 life where the guy goes out to work and the woman's at home cooking and cleaning, look after the child. It's just something I really don't want ever in my life. Why would I want that life when I live my own life, pay my own bills, I write books that change lives, I do this YouTube channel and another channel I'm growing as well. I get to interview people on the other channel. I get to be, like doing lots of things that I don't believe I could do or want to do or have time to do or be able to do if I had children. Why would I want that lesser life? Why would I want the mundane of cooking and cleaning for a child and having to go to bed at a certain time, having to get them to bed at a certain time? I don't even go to bed usually till 4 a.m. most nights. Sometimes it's 2 a.m. It does vary, but a lot of the time I don't even like to go to sleep till 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. But sometimes it's 2. Like last night, I didn't go to bed till this morning actually. And I think it was 6 a.m. and I got up at just before 12. So it's like I had less than 6 hours sleep. But like I like leading a high octane energetic life. I don't like going to bed at normal times. I can't a lot of the time because it just doesn't work out for me. And a lot of the things that you expect a child to do, like go to bed at a certain time, eat certain food at certain times, it's very restrictive, and I'm a person that's not really into restrictions or certain routines that I just think are like rubbish. I eat when I'm hungry. I eat a lot of food because I get low blood sugar, but I eat when I'm hungry, and it might be 0 o'clock at night or it might be much later in the day. But being able to just have the freedom to do what you want, and then when a guy starts talking about kids, I'm just like, everything just shuts down in me. I'm like, restriction, normality, boringness, time consuming, like I just think of all the imposed restrictions when I think of that, and I'm like, why would you even want to do that? And especially as a business girl, like for me it's like I'd rather have a career, I'd rather be helping people than like changing nappies or getting school uniforms ready and talking to parents that I don't even have anything in common with. Like I don't really talk to many women. Mostly it's guys that I'm friends with. So I'm not the type of person who like be a mother that would have a kid in a buggy and talk to other mothers. That to me is just like a foreign, absurd, completely ridiculous thing for me to even contemplate doing. I have no inclination or want to do that at all. I don't really get that interested in about women's talk. A lot of it is to do with painting their nails, makeup, and all those like women's things. That's like I'm not into that. I'm into like blogging, writing, learning about AI lately, and all sorts of things, and like going out and having fun with my life, not living that restrictive adult boring life. I just can't stand it. So I hope that in the future when I do meet the right guy for me, if he's the right guy, like he's not going to want kids either. He's going to be like, no, I like my freedom, I like the single life, or I like to be in a relationship but not be with a child. I like to be child free, so that we can do things together and not be held back by anything. But I haven't met the right guy yet. But there's always hope, right? But I do love my single life. I really love my single life. It's very important that I have freedom in that way. But it'd be nice to meet my soulmate eventually, wouldn't it? But I think, like when you have a child, it's like, like there's just so much normality you have to have, and I just don't like a normal relationship. I just find them really boring, to be honest with you, and it's not the type of life I like. Doc, this chat is ideal. I didn't want to have children when I was 22. It all stemmed from an experience at McDonald's. Oh, Doc, it's lovely to see you here. I want to know what happened with your experience at McDonald's now. I was saying I knew I didn't want to have kids when I was 15, so you knew that you didn't want to have kids when you were 22. Like, I know that there are a lot of asexuals that don't actually want kids, and I said I don't think that, just because I don't want kids, I don't think that's linked to me being asexual, as in the sense I knew I didn't want kids when I was 15, but I do think that there is obviously a big link in terms of in generalness to do with the fact that many asexuals who don't want sex, they don't necessarily get the natural need, urge, or want for children either. They're more likely to not want kids, although there are some asexuals that do have kids and do want kids. I used to see quite a few actually on asexuality.com, guys who did actually want a family and want kids despite the fact they're asexual. So that was another barrier with dating even asexual guys, because it's like they still want kids, some of them. And it's like, why would you want a family if you don't like sex? But you know what I mean? And it's like when I come on dating sites and there's a guy talking to me, and then, he's not really thinking things through. When I say I don't want children, I don't want children. When I say I don't want to get married, I don't want to get married, right? And they haven't really thought it through. And I'm like, do you want kids? They're like, oh, no, I don't want them at the moment. And I'm like, so you might want them in the future then? Like, I categorically don't want children. And it's like, what part of I don't want children do you not understand, right? And some of them don't even think that far ahead. So that's the only problem with me liking younger guys. There's a lot of them still haven't fully thought through. Do they want sex? Do they want marriage? Well, they've thought about wanting sex usually, but do they want marriage? Do they want kids? And just because they don't want it now doesn't mean to say they're never going to want it. But I know I don't want kids, right? And it would be totally weird of me to think about kids and liking younger guys. I feel it would be worse if I had children, because it's like, you know what I mean? If the child was not, like if the guy I liked was in his early 20s, and then say I had a child that was like 10 years old or something, that person would only be like, not that well, it'd be it's like, say guy was 21 and the child was 10, it'd still be 11 years younger. 11 years older, the kid would be like 11 years younger than the guy. But I kind of find that a bit weird, but I would find it more strange me liking younger guys if I had children, because obviously then I might have older children, and that would just be weird. I find it a lot more easier and acceptable for me to not have children and to want to be with a young guy, because I don't think of myself as a mother. I don't think of myself as capable, or I know I'm physically capable. I don't think of myself as having being a parent to a child, being a parental figure. So me liking younger guys, to me, the guy is not that much different in age to me, if you know what I mean, if that makes sense. Because I don't think like a mother. I don't think like an adult parent in that way. Doc, can you imagine enjoying your meal only to be disrupted by the sounds of unruly kids running all over the place? Out of frustration, I went to the counter and asked to have my food to go. Ah, right. Okay, Doc. So something that's very interesting to me is I actually do not mind being around kids. I used to want to work with kids when I was 15 years old, although I didn't want to have kids. So I don't mind being around children because I like them as little beings in their own right. So I go to kids club at the cinema, and I'm usually the loudest one there though, not the kids. So I'm usually the kid, and they're more like the adults, even at a cinema. It's really weird. So I don't have a problem with kids being all over the place. So, for example, when I went to the zoo with my best friend Sammy, and when I went to the aquarium, they had kids because they had like schools on outings at the zoo and the aquarium, which is totally weird. So they must have had like 5 different bus trips to Peyton Zoo. There was a teenager bus trip, and the others were from like primary and secondary. Well, I think mostly from primary schools. And at the aquarium in Bristol, there was really young kids. They must have been like between the ages of 6 and 10. And they had like they had tour guides at Bristol Aquarium specifically for the busloads of kids. So I have no problem with children being near me, around me. I actually get on really well with kids. And so I don't have a problem with kids being kids. So I actually would make a good mother, but I'm just not interested in that. So I don't personally have a problem with children like being kids, if you know what I mean. And I don't, I understand they're gonna get excited because I'm very excitable. I'm like a kid myself. That's why another reason why I don't want kids, because I'm like a kid myself. It's like there's no room for more. It takes me all my time to look after myself without looking after something else. But yeah, so I can understand that if you're bothered by kids, that would be really annoying for you. And, I do know kids can get pretty loud at times, and it was quite intimidating when I went to Bristol Aquarium and I couldn't even get to the toilet because there, like I had to go the long way around because there were so many teachers with kids all over the place. Like Bristol Aquarium, they had like 5 trips or something. They had all the tables and they were all over the floor. And I had to walk. I couldn't get around to go to the toilet like that. I had to go all the way around the edge and go to the toilet like that. So, but I just think it's kids being kids. Um, but yeah, so I guess noise and stuff doesn't really bother me so much. But usually I'm noisier than a lot of the kids. Like, in London, I love Shrek Adventureland. And so when I go to Shrek Adventureland, there's children often, and I'm one of the few adults. Obviously, the children usually go with adults, but I am like a grown-up child. And so I'm usually there making the noises more than the kids. So they'll be like saying about the Shrek story, and they'll be saying something about the story, and you're meant to like make noises and go, yay, and stuff like this. And the kids will be quite quiet, and it's me going, yay. Doc. Furthermore, my choice to be child-free is out of concern for the overpopulation of Earth. And believe me, I've seen far too many episodes of Maury about men with many babies with different women. Yeah, I do think it's bad. I agree with you that so many guys have babies with different women. It's a very good point you say about that. I've already spoke at length about the fact I think a lot of people have kids for the wrong reasons. I really do. And it's why a lot of adults have such mental health problems is they've had bad childhoods and childhood trauma a lot of the time from people who had, the parents weren't healthy themselves. They were quite toxic. They weren't fostering loving, caring relationships with their children. They weren't allowing the children to express emotions healthily. It was like children should be seen, not heard, and all this lot of rubbish, very damaging for children as adults even. So yeah, like having different like different women for babies is just really disgusting. I find that so disconcerting for the child as well. A lot of the time I find that people who have parents that are divorced are less likely to want to get married as well, because especially if the relationship was abusive. And no one should be bringing a child into an abusive relationship. But there was a couple when I first moved in to my new place here that lived downstairs underneath. Thank God they've gone now, so that I have much better neighbours. But they were in an abusive relationship. It was absolutely awful, and they were shouting and swearing at each other for hours. I couldn't say it on here because the walls are paper thin and they would hear me talking about them, but they've left now. But she was pregnant with his child, and I was just thinking, how can you be arguing and shouting and screaming at each other for hours and swearing at each other and bring a child into this world like that? Like, it's not fair on the child. Just think what type of life that child is going to have when it just hears its parents like fighting and arguing and shouting and screaming and saying nasty things to each other. It's just awful. Why would anyone want to go for that? Why would you subject any baby or child to that? It's disgusting. And one of the guys years ago that I did have a child, like teenager, well, I was actually 14 or 15 when I got into a relationship with a guy. Like, his dad was a pervert, basically. And when I went to his house, his dad would say, "Oh, twirl around." And this guy I actually did like a lot. And he wasn't like his dad, I thought at the time. But years later, when I split up with my ex, this guy came back into my life. And then he had got different children by different women because he basically couldn't keep it in his trousers and was like his dad. And it's like, what? So, like, it is really bad when the child's like, like pushed from pillar to post. I mean, when children have parents that are bad examples to them, womanizers and stuff like that. It's just, horrible. And I do believe, if someone can't be faithful, don't get into a relationship and don't drag kids into arguments and don't get into a relationship and then just have a kid and then, you know, then then leave. I mean, obviously you shouldn't be in a relationship that's not healthy. I think if you're arguing, then you should leave. It's better to leave than be in a relationship where you're shouting and screaming at each other. But you shouldn't be having kids anyway unless you've stabilized the relationship, unless it's healthy. Do you know what I mean? So many people get into relationships quickly and have kids quickly. But sometimes people can be doing it to trap the other person. Some people who are manipulators and controllers try to get their woman pregnant so that she will be stuck with him forever. And that's really sad. It's sad when children are used as pawns and weapons or weaponized or in a relationship. It's just awful. So kids come with a lot of responsibility. Kids come with a lot of like time management, organization. Kids come with a lot of restrictions. Kids come with like a lot of normality. Kids come with a lot of expense. But I do think if you're gonna have kids, you should do it in a healthy way and you should repair a lot of your damage before you have kids if you are gonna have kids. But some people just can't stand kids screaming or babies crying and stuff like that. I'm not a baby person. Like, I don't feel comfortable holding babies, although I can still get on well with babies. When I worked in my old job, I was opposite a nursery. And so I once had a baby like holding my little finger because babies and children, they know they're safe with me. Like, I used to have kids come up and start holding my hand when they've never met me, before that's the first time, because they can feel and sense that I'm safe. Usually kids and babies know when someone's safe for them and when someone's not. Doc, that's why I tell people over and over again, if you don't like the effects, then stop producing the causes. If only Nick Cannon had gotten the memo. Yeah, exactly. People should not be having kids if they're not capable of having them in a healthy way. People are very selfish. I spoke about this in the beginning, a lot of people are very selfish for the reasons they want children and have children. It's all about them, like, oh, this child's got to support me in my old age. This child will be great to play with for a bit. I've got to have a child because that's what I'm meant to do. It's my duty. I need to keep the family name going. So I need to produce offspring, so I can keep the family name going, so I can keep the family going. It's like, what? These are all rubbish excuses for having kids. These are not the right reasons. You have kids because you're like, I really want to bring up a child healthily into this world. I want to teach it right from wrong, but I want to allow it to make its own decisions and choices. I want it to see the beauty of the world. I want it to understand the work that's ahead of it. I want to, make it make their life peaceful and calm, but also let them know that they can get through all the trials and tribulations of life. I want to be supportive and and bring a kid up to think for itself and have its own opinions and thoughts. But a lot of the time people are just having kids for their own selfish desires and reasons, not because they actually want to produce a healthy individual that they want to love, cherish, and take care of in a healthy way, just because they want it for their own selfish means to look after them in their old age, to be something to dictate to make them to be a same type of person they are, or make them live the life that they never lived, so that that person's always like living the life of their parents and stuff like this. I just think so many people have kids for the wrong reasons, and I don't think it's good. And that's why so many adults have a lot of serious mental health issues going on, because people have had kids for the wrong reasons. If you can't be there for a child, if you can't be there to comfort it in its hour of need, if you can't be there to allow it to express its emotions, whether it's anger, but in a healthy way. Teach the child to say, look, I'm angry now, I'm upset, I'm frustrated, rather than like it's screaming out because no one's actually listening to it. And if you think children should be seen and not heard, why the hell are you having kids in the first place? That is one of the worst things to say to a child. I said it earlier, I'll say it again, because children should be seen and not heard. Why did you have them? If you believe they should be seen but not heard, why have them? If you never wanted to hear your child speak or hear its views and opinions and take it seriously, take it into consideration and care about what the actual child wants, why have it? So you can just ignore it? What was the point? It's just so selfish. It's just really bad. Doc, oh, you talk about selfish. Us child-free folks have been unfairly called that because we decide not to have kids and rather spend our money on doing all we want to do, like travel. Yeah, exactly. Child-free people are not selfish at all. I luckily I haven't been called selfish very often to do with that. You know, people who are child-free aren't selfish because they've decided made a conscious decision not to have kids. And so therefore it's better to not have children than bring something up into the world that you don't want to have. You know what I mean? That you don't want to be responsible for. Yeah, I brought up about travel earlier that, if you want to travel, you can just go and do what you want when you want. And there's no problem in leaving your own legacy in life and doing what you want to do. You don't have to be producing an offspring in order to make your life fulfilled. In fact, it's just a lot of hassle, trouble, a lot of extra work, and a lot of living your life that's not your own life if you're actually a good parent. Obviously, if you're a crap parent, then you end up being very selfish and dictating to the child what it should do, manipulating and controlling the child, and not allowing it to live its own life. So you smother it or push it away and avoid it. So but there's nothing wrong and definitely nothing selfish about deciding you don't want to have children. It's actually much less selfish to not have children than to bring something into the world based on your wants, needs, likes, and desires, rather than just because you want to have an actual being in its own right come into this world so it can live a happy life in its own right. I think, when someone makes a conscious decision about their life and a conscious choice not to have children, they are acting from a place of responsibility, of being very self-aware, which is really healthy. So it's not selfish at all. It's actually selfless to be thinking, well, because for example, I'm an only child and the bloodline of my family actually ends with me. If you like, I'm the last Bellamy in our family. That's my surname. And so, by me not having kids, I'm not carrying on that family. And, that is my choice. I do not want kids, and I wouldn't just keep the family going for the sake of it. But by writing books that change lives, like my asexual perspective book I showed you earlier, fibromyalgia, these are my legacy. These are what I leave behind, not a bloodline, not genes, but I leave these types of books and more to come behind so that I can still save lives years later. That to me is more important than having a child. You have one child, but it's like, okay, I've had one child, but I can save thousands of people's lives by writing a ton of books. Yes, if my parents hadn't had me, though, I wouldn't be here to do that. So I have to give praise to my parents for having a child. My mum's always wanted a child, though. It was her dream. So it's something she really wanted for forever, like since she actually, it was an actual dream of hers. So it's good to know that she actually wanted a child and really wanted it. It was a goal of hers in life. I think that's quite unique actually, to actually really want a child, in that way, to the point where it's a goal for that person rather than just, doing it for the sake of it, if you know what I mean. So yeah, but yeah, I do love being child free, like Doc says, It's really good to be able to spend your money on doing what you want when you want, and traveling and not worrying about something else, someone else. I think it's really important. I love like the freedom of being able to live your own life. And because I have an anxiety condition and worry about myself a lot and things, I like to have things done a certain way for my anxiety to be as calmful and peaceful as possible. Having a kid with anxiety would be an absolute frigging nightmare. And also, I do have fibromyalgia as well, which is a chronic pain condition that affects the nerves and muscles of the body. And the people who have fibromyalgia that have children, they usually have a lot more pain because their partner expects them to do housework and cooking and cleaning for a child. And if you're in a lot of pain constantly yourself, you don't want to be having to take care of something else, someone else, because it's hard enough looking after yourself without looking after another being. You know what I mean? So I think, if you have got a disability or health condition, being child free is much better for you because you don't have that burden and worry of having to look after something, which is extra responsibility and takes an extra toll on your body, on your mental health, and puts you under a lot more pressure. I think especially if you have an autoimmune condition like I do and you have like pain condition, it's a lot better to just be free, to be looking after yourself in life and not have to worry about another being. That would cause me major issues and problems if I was having to take care of someone else as well. Because my best friend Andy, he actually comes and he does do housework for me and looks after me sometimes. He's coming actually to date now because we've gone into Sunday, but it's more for like social friendship. But he will do cleaning and stuff for me because I am in so much pain sometimes. Like I just need help. And so he'll help me. But, imagine having that condition and having to do things for a child all the time at the same time. It'd just be like much more pain, much more debilitating. I would have less of a life, less of a happy life, less of a satisfying life. I'll be in more pain, and so that's no good. The people in the fibromyalgia groups that do all the housework for their husbands and children, they're in so much pain, and sometimes their husband is calling them lazy and stuff if they don't do it, which I think is absolutely disgusting. And so, there's a lot of benefits to being child free, especially if you are asexual and don't want sex. And obviously, if you have disability in some way, because trying to look after yourself with disability can be really hard, but trying to look after something else as well is just like, can be very debilitating, stressful, and anxiety inducing even more. And so, I'd rather be living my freedom life, not doing the washing up all in one go, leaving it for days, doing it when I do it when I have to, than actually cooking and cleaning and mopping up after a kid all the time. It would just like be no good for me. And it just would be like so much pain and my life would be much more miserable. I'm so much happy. I'm so much happier being sex free since 2011 as well. That's a long time. We're in 2023 now. I've been sex free for a long time. I love being sex free. I'm so happy, like, because you don't have like STDs to worry about, or STIs to worry about, or like bedclothes getting wrecked and fluids going everywhere, and you don't have to worry about getting pregnant and having kids, which is a major, major bonus. I just don't want kids at all. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this live stream. I want to say thanks to people being in the chat tonight. Violet, lots of love to you. Doc, lots of love to you. I do believe personally for me being child free is a blessing. And yeah, and it's nice to see Violet and Doc happy without kids as well. As Violet said, being single is a paradise and not having kids is paradise as well, I think. But I wouldn't mind a relationship if the right guy came along, but as long as he does not want or need or expect me to have kids, because I'm really not interested in that. And he should go through my life very quickly and find someone else that can give him that, because I'm really not up for that. Anyway, been lovely to talk to you. Take care and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Doc, love this chat. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Doc. Lovely to see you. Lots of love. Take care. Thanks for your support as always. And for anyone who's not subscribed, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. Thanks for the thumbs up. Lots of love. Bye.